Hello and hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Life Uncensored, navigating adulthood one episode at a time. Today, we're going to be talking about Parkinson's disease awareness. I think this is a very fascinating and important topic to just kind of get this word out about what's going on in that community and how we can help and things that we just need to know. So let's see who's riding shotgun today. We've got Dr. George Ackerman. He's a law enforcement professional, educator, and advocate based in Florida. After losing his mother, Sharon Ackerman, to Parkinson's disease in 2020, he founded Together for Sharon to honor her memory and raise awareness for Parkinson's. Through the organization, George interviews individuals across the Parkinson's community, sharing their stories and advocating for a cure. He is also the author of A Son's Journey from Parkinson's Disease Caregiver to Advocate, a memoir of his caregiving experience and his mother's battle with the disease. Together for Sharon reaches thousands nationwide, continuing the mission for Parkinson's awareness and hope. Everyone, let's welcome Dr. George Ackerman to the stage.
Hi, thanks for your time and all your audience. It means the world to me.
Hi, George. Thank you so much for joining us and being willing to talk about this very important topic. Um, that, quite frankly, I don't think we hear enough about in terms of what's going on to find a cure, what help there is out there, and just understanding all the different things that come with the disease from the person who's battling it to the people who are their loved ones surrounding them and are sharing in that experience in terms of being caregivers. So I really appreciate your point of view today on our show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Unfortunately, it seems to be becoming a national topic. As you might note, last week, Brett Favre, the famous football player, came out to talk about it. Just a week before that, Ryan Reynolds discussed his father's battle with Parkinson's, hallucinations, and delusions, which often is not talked about enough. And also, you have Mr. Michael J. Fox fighting for many decades. So I don't know if it is the fastest growing progression of a disease in the world, but I'm not sure if it's because of advocacy that we're hearing more or that more people are being diagnosed. So that's why I'm
Yes.
grateful for your time and your audience and your friendship because I don't get anything from this on purpose. I lost my mother, unfortunately, on 1 2020 due to Parkinson's. So obviously, in reality, we can't bring her back. And actually, just last Saturday would have been her birthday. So
Wow.
it's been a tough week for us. But we continue fighting in her memory for all those still battling today and their family. So it's kind of a bigger cause than just me. And again, we don't accept anything but that. I hope people know they're never alone because I felt alone as a caregiver, and my mother felt alone as someone diagnosed. And I also don't want anyone to go through what she did or our family.
You said something that I really want to touch on. Feeling alone as the caregiver. Can you share with the audience what that journey was like for you from the stages of learning that your mother had this diagnosis all the way up through her demise? Can you just talk about what that was like for you? And why do you use the word alone in that statement?
Yeah, I think I felt alone because I didn't know who to turn to, what to look for, what resources were out there, and didn't really have the door being knocked down to help, because we weren't aware. I mean, my mother, we believe, had it for 15 years, but for 7 years, I knew the word Parkinson, but I didn't even know it's a disease. She was still able to live independently she was divorced, but she loved, living alone, having that independence as any person would. And for 7 years, she was able to do that. But after the seventh year, she's trying to get her stiffness in her left arm, but she still could live independently. Unfortunately, the last 4 years is when I felt like I was thrown into the wolves with no training. You really can't take a course on caregiving, you're just thrown into it. I don't think I would be the man I am today or have any success that I've had if it wasn't for my mother's sacrifices as a child. She was a school teacher and had a master's and gave it all up to raise me and my brother. So I knew that when the time was there, I didn't know it was going to come, but I knew when she was struggling, I'd have to step up. And, even to this day, I know a lot more, but I don't think we could have done anything to have changed the progression. It progressed quickly. The last 4 years was something I had to write a book on because it was too, sometimes it's tough to even still talk about.
Mm.
But she started having, we tried everything, but she went for a special program for people with Parkinson's, and I'm not sure if they drastically changed her medication too quickly, but that night she ended up at 4 a.m. Being outside of her home. I was called to rush over. I showed up and she was moving her furniture out of her home, and I asked what was wrong, and she thought there were Nazis inside that were going to harm her. So I
Mm.
rushed I rushed her to the hospital, and then they said we saved her life, but that was the day it kind of went downward from her ability to sleep. She never slept. She also had stomach issues due to the medicines. She had more internal tremors, so Parkinson's disease and neurodegenerative disease. They believe it's 5 stages. Obviously, we wouldn't have the time to go through all of them, but the first three are pretty much where it's freezing of the gate. So it's like I want to touch the screen, but my brain won't allow it or my body won't allow it. So
Okay.
it's also rigidity, where we're very rigid, and other things are things like movement symptoms, bradykinesia, slightly difficulty walking, but you can still live independently. And some have a facial expression. It's called a masking. The second stage is where these things just start to get more difficult. And the third stage is where you start losing balance and it gets very kind of dangerous because you don't want to break something on top of having Parkinson's. Also, then it moves to the tougher stages, 4 and 5. 4 is where independent living is almost impossible. That's where I really had to step in, but we hired a staff to kind of watch over her, but they were, no offense, they were terrible. Nobody was trained for Parkinson's, and she also had delusions and hallucinations, and those are sometimes more frightening than Parkinson's because she was in fear that people were going to harm her. When you
Mm.
take a female or anyone and they live their whole life on their own. And now you're sticking different shifts of women and men, and like crazy. It's just too much. So she was really worried. And then the final stage is where you've lost the smell, constipation, but so bad that you don't sleep 7 days a week.
Mm.
Poor reasoning and memory judgment. We thought she had late onset dementia, possibly sleep disturbances and vision. So you can see, unfortunately, the
Wow.
whole array of issues. But the most famous is where you might know Michael J. Fox has the external tremors where you're uncontrollably shaking. That really can kind of, it's my mother had no other medical issues, and they always say, which I don't agree, you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. But every journey is different. So what happened to our family doesn't mean it'll happen to everyone else. But
Right.
she had no other medical issues, so I'm still kind of confused as we're sitting here live. What happened?
Right. So let me ask you something there because you made a very good point that, very frankly, was jarring to me to hear that you hired a team of caregivers to come in and help, but they weren't trained to help people carrying the disease.
Right.
Where do you get that help? Where does the training come from? Is there anything out there training wise for those type of medical professionals and caregivers?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm in Florida. They have businesses, and they call themselves, caregiving and all this. And
Yeah.
the only goal was that she didn't fall. So if they could just make sure she didn't fall, I was happy with them.
Mm.
Problem is, again, with the delusions and hallucinations, she started to fear them, and that became another problem. So we went through like several organizations, probably 68. Finally, we found two beautiful, caring women who did end up being like heaven because I was able to have a minute to breathe. If you have time, if anyone out there, read my book. It's called The Sun's Journey, and
Mhm.
it's about my mother, but then my caregiving to advocacy today. And I write about the struggles with the different companies. Also, my mother would call me. We were very close, but she would call all day and night, over and over, telling me they're harming her and things. So
Mm.
my background's in law enforcement. I'm a police officer, reserve. I'm an attorney, and I have a PhD in criminal justice. I've been advocating my whole life. I actually advocated for African American mothers who lost their loved ones due to murder in Florida. That was my career before caregiving and advocacy for Parkinson's. And so I turned a lot of my life, work towards Parkinson's, and even today, kind of do it tirelessly, which is getting on me because I'm not gonna lie, some days I feel burnt out, and
Mm,
I feel we have to have hope, we have to keep fighting, but there are days where it was too late for our family, but it's not for others. So
yeah.
it's a struggle. It's something that is becoming kind of more popular, and not for good reason. As you know, a few months ago, the big talk was whether President Biden had Parkinson's or not. I don't
Hmm.
get into the politics. The only good thing about that was that now the word Parkinson's disease was at the national kind of fingertips and our mouths around the world. So the
Yeah.
more we have awareness, like your show today, the more likely we'll be closer to a cure. And we need to keep researching until that is here. When my mother was very sick, they kept talking about a pill, the magic pill, which never came, which was you take it and it's gone. I would dream of the day, that happens because I could still get Parkinson's, and they don't believe it's genetic. We think it's more environmental, like pesticides and the treatment of our fruits and
Wow.
vegetables and the chemicals in our water. But right now, if I had it, there's not much except there is things like exercise can slow the progression. So we're learning more things every day, but there's still a lot more work to be done.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Talk to me about Together for Sharon. At what point of your journey did you decide this is what I'm going to do? Was it while she was still battling? Was it after she had already left us? What? How did we get to the point where Together for Sharon was realized for you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was actually after she passed, we were all in shock, and we still are today. We didn't want her to be forgotten. I felt like she lost 15 years alive due to Parkinson's, and 15 years after, because she was only 69, and to me, that's pretty young, even in 2024. So I decided, why not, remember her and just kind of put a. It's not. We're not a company on purpose. I didn't want it to be about money. Someday it might have to be just because I want to do more, and it's worth limited. Even writing books costs a tremendous. I didn't even dream, and we
Yeah.
didn't. We don't accept anything from any proceeds go to the Michael J. Fox Foundation and other big organizations. We don't accept money, so it's kind of tough to do this all the day and night when you're not really, fundraising for yourself. So. We started the website. I thought there'd be like 3 or 4 people visit, and I would have been fine with it. We've had over 45,000 people visit. And again, I don't know if it's because of my work or that the disease is just kind of excelling. It's not funny, but it's odd. I have TikTok, which I never dreamt I'd be on. And I usually put up things, I'll get like 200 likes, which is fine, whatever, I move on. But the other day, I was lucky enough to have a message from Mr. Brett Favre, the NFL player. He actually thanked me in the message. And I put it up. It's had over 500,000 likes in views in only a few weeks, which is, it just shows the power of the celebrity and the athlete.
Yeah.
And we really need everyone. I've had the honor to speak to Muhammad Ali's daughter. She provided a message. Also, Jack Osborne, who's Ozzy Osbourne's son,
Hmm.
and a few others. Kenny G was my mother's favorite saxophone player. He played a song and gave a message from my mother, too. So we really need, everybody from regular people like me to the celebrities to political figures to everybody in this fight in order for us to ever end this disease.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I feel like when something isn't widely known, once a celebrity, politician, someone who's highly visible has their hands on it, that's when it becomes widely known. So I'm really glad to hear that. That's such an honor, for Brett Favre to reach out to you in such a capacity. That means that your work is not going unnoticed. That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I just wish no one else had to kind of come forward. We lost Richard
Yeah.
Lewis, who was a famous comedian just a few months ago. There's a lot of Ed Begley Jr. is a famous actor who has it. Also, just unfortunately, it's growing, and I
Yeah.
hope we're working on a lot of books and things just because I want more awareness. I was shocked when I found out my book was the only one in the world, literally, that is about a son who lost their loved one due to Parkinson's. Is not
Mm,
Yeah, it's not enough. And I was shocked too. My mother passed in 2020, and I knew I wanted to have a mission to help remember her. But after 2 years, I thought there were about 1 million people or more in the U.S. with Parkinson's, and I was really saddened and shocked to find out that 10 million people around the world fighting it. So that's when I decided to interview, as of today, interviewed 1,000 people around the world for awareness to share their journeys. And we just last week published our first book. It's two set, but one it's called Voices of Resilience, and in the book is actually interviews with other people who are
Oh,
either
wow.
advocates or people fighting Parkinson's disease. But it reaches the world from England, Spain, France, Africa, England, you name it. Parkinson sadly does not discriminate. So I wanted to have a world where everybody's kind of recognized and remembered. And that's very important to me is every journey matters. And the only one that I don't know about is the one that breaks my heart.
Right, right. No, that's amazing. I'm glad that you're doing that, that you're publishing these books, that you have your podcast, that you're just part of this mission. Because like you said, more and more people, prevalent or not, are discovering that they have the disease or they know someone close to them. And just understanding where it comes from, if there's a way to prevent it, how to mitigate it if you already have it. All those things are important. No matter what stage, they're all very important. Let's talk a little bit more about your books, especially your first book. What made you say to yourself, I want to get this out there? I'm going to write about my journey through this, being a caregiver and an advocate for Parkinson's disease. What made you take that leap and do it?
I never wanted to write a book. I've written books on like the law and things, but not on caregiving. And the last year of my mother's life was the toughest for me and her. I watched, beautiful, young, in my opinion, woman, strong, independent, kind of just fade away due to a disease, which was something I couldn't describe. So I kept a
Mm.
journal the last year, and I kept the date and timestamp, and I can even read a sentence if you'd like. But
Yes, please.
it's really like imagine sitting there next to me and hearing in my mind the good, the bad, and the ugly. But one example would be June 11th, 2019, 8 a.m. My mother called very upset and cries that I shouldn't forget her and I should take her out of her place into my home. She believes people are harming her. I calm her down, but these calls are constant, repetitive, and almost round the clock. She says the nighttime aide is mean to her but likes the daytime aide. Yesterday she loved the nighttime aide but hated the daytime aide.
Mm.
She will not hang up and begs me again to pick her up so I can come live with her. She is upset at her family and keeps repeating, please don't forget me. So again, that's just one, example of what it does to the individual's mind. It almost kind of takes their soul and their purpose, and it's not really them anymore. And as a caregiver, seeing anyone, especially a loved one, go through that you go through so many emotions from depression, sadness, fear. Then you have the opposite where you have a little bit of hope and joy in the little moments, and then back to the same thing. So, and also because 15 medical professionals said you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it, we never dreamt we would have lost her. So the whole thing is just very tough. But again, there's a lot of positive from the darkness, meeting individuals who, like you, inspire me and your audience, and really gain some friendships and people who have Parkinson's today that I would never have had if it wasn't for this. So I am grateful for all the amazing people like yourself who have become like my family today.
That's awesome. Now, I understand that you met Mr. Michael J. Fox. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, what that experience was like, and how that felt for you?
Yeah, I mean, he was my hero. He's somebody who could have led a quiet life, didn't have to be public, and decided to keep fighting, not just for himself, but for everybody else out there. I had a rare opportunity to meet him. Usually I wouldn't have because I work too much. And, my wife looked at me and we said, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime thing, even if it's for a minute. It might change my life. And it did.
Hmm.
It's a long story, but it was like when you're in the movies and your life flashes by you. Part of me was in heaven because I got to meet him, but the other part was sad and because I saw that what the disease was doing to him. But I did have an opportunity. We made these little bands when my mother passed,
Yeah.
and they say Parkinson's awareness, and we don't do this anymore because it was expensive. But in memory of my mother, and I actually handed him one, and I didn't even know he took it. So later in that day when I met him, he had been taking pictures with other people, and someone sent a photo, and he actually had been wearing the band the entire day without.
Wow.
So that was an incredible moment. But I just told, I had a whole thing planned. I wanted to interview him, but I didn't get to that because, like, when I was speaking to him, I felt a little bad that he was, struggling. So I didn't want to bother him. But now, if I ever get a chance again, I met him again, but I'd like to ask to interview him someday if he could. But it's just, this is I don't know if you can see that's the photo, me and him. But he's
Yeah.
actually he's wearing the band in the picture.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, I told him we love him and we're fighting for him. And we also raise a lot of money for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So he said thank you. And just knowing that he, knew my mother now, and they actually list my mother's book on their website, which is beautiful. And I never dreamed that she'd make it to Michael J. Fox's website. So it's not.
That's awesome. And I've always heard nothing but good things about him. That he's just a really kind person in general, separate from the disease. That he's just a kind person. So that's awesome that you got to meet him. That he was wearing your rocking your band. That's just amazing. That's amazing. I want to pivot a little bit because, as mentioned earlier, um, you are law enforcement professional as well. And one of the things that you and I had talked about in our preliminary meeting was your advocacy for um, mothers who've lost their children. But something that you mentioned, which I thought was fascinating, was finding a way to raise awareness for those law enforcement officials who are on their feet every day outside, um, to understand the signs if someone has Parkinson's, so that there is awareness that this person isn't making a knee jerk reaction to harm, but they are living with a disease. So, can you talk about that a little bit more in depth?
It's funny you say that. I don't know if I tell you, but I'm finishing a book on it. And it's actually going to be on policing and Parkinson's. So it's
Awesome.
actually the first one in the world. Again, I don't know why it's like that. It's sad. I wish it wasn't. I wish there were hundreds. We have books on, aliens and zombies, but Halloween, but we don't have enough for that, Parkinson's awareness. But so I was just listening to someone speak one day a few years, like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was, I'm in law enforcement, and I actually an academy professor, a trainer. So I've taught the whole curriculum in Florida, South Florida. So I thought to myself, Parkinson's unfortunately is a movement disorder. Well, guess what? If an officer pulls over an individual and they're doing this movement and doesn't follow their commands or whatever during an approach or interaction with a citizen, it's not going to end well. And this is more pro police. It's not to bash them, as many things unfortunately are. I think if we're positive with every topic and subject, we can change the world for the better. Obviously, they need improvements, but so does everyone, even myself. So I thought, what's the problem? Well, I did a lot of research, and again, the book will be out probably next year, April, for Parkinson's Awareness Month. Hope, and I was shocked to find out, and I don't want to reveal too much yet, but
Okay.
most academies that I researched one academy in every state in the United States. I also interviewed about 20 people who have Parkinson's and 30 police officers from around the country. All that will be in the book. But what I noticed first is that a lot of people with Parkinson's fear the police, which is sad and frightening. Number two, most officers are just not trained with even the word Parkinson. And number three, in most of the academies, they mention dementia and Alzheimer's, but Parkinson's disease does not exist. So my dream really would be either go to Congress or get somehow some help because it's just me. But to have them add Parkinson's disease into every academy training manual throughout the United States, and I think that would be enough to change the world for safety for both officers and those people with Parkinson's. But again, without you and all your audience and people listening, sharing your show and supporting you, we can't get the word out. And that's been the
Right.
big, uh, just a few months ago, the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease passed. It's the first national federal law in U.S. history. Now, partly it's incredible, but partly that's sad that it's only the first time in history, like literal, that they've actually moved. So now we have that. What it'll do next is interesting. How it will be implemented, we'll have to see. But I think we need a lot more attention. I think that if an officer even has a minute of the word and knowledge of Parkinson, and maybe when they have a weapon out or maybe they're approaching the car, obviously they have to care for their safety and others first. But maybe if they're aware or they ask for a medical card or ask, or if someone says, I have Parkinson's, like some of the people I interviewed and the officers, like, I don't care, maybe we could change that. So that's my real
Mhm.
goal. Once again, I don't want anything in return except safety for everybody involved. And I think this is a national issue. It's just not enough attention yet.
Right. So are there anything, is there anything out there like that, like a medical card or something like that that people carry when they have Parkinson's?
Yeah, that I do cover all of it in the book. There is a one organization that has something, but if that person with Parkinson isn't aware of it, then that's no good. And also, if they don't tell the officer fast enough, it's too late.
Hmm.
So a lot of these things, I think, again, my biggest problem with this book will be getting it out there because unless
Okay.
every, I can't afford to send it to every police academy in the country, nor would I have the time. But if somehow we could do that, I think it would change because it's not just the people going through the training, it's also for sworn officers already in. They can have an actual course, which they have to do anyway, like continual training.
Right.
This became very big with autism. Now there's a lot more training for autism and mental illness, but there's not for Parkinson. So why not add
Mhm.
that to it?
I see. Okay. So does Together for Sharon offer any resources to families or individuals who are affected by Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, I don't have Parkinson's right now. I'm not a caregiver of someone alive with Parkinson's. So I teamed up with a group called PSP Awareness. And once a month, completely free, we have a Zoom for support. It's for anyone who lost a loved one due to any disease, not just Parkinson. We all meet virtually. It's confidential, it's not recorded. It's just a place to really talk because I still need support. I'm still grieving. But
Yes.
other than that, it's just me. We're not an organization on purpose, but I do have a lot of resources on Together for Sharon for major organizations that have a lot more kind of view and also reach. And anyone's welcome to use our website completely free. You can see the 1,000 interviews. You could see our show. I have one today with someone who's on something called Team Fox, and they raise money for Michael J. Fox for research. So I'll be interviewing her about all of her work. So I just do it all again to get awareness out there and more research and hope for a cure. But it's kind of, it's funny. People think we're a mega organization because I try to do a lot, but there's some days, again, just very tough to keep it going just because it's a lot of time. It's also the topics are not always easy.
Yeah.
I still miss my mother every day, and she was my best friend.
No, I can't. I can't even imagine that, especially watching it progress the way that you've described. But the fact that you've shared it in your written works, I think is amazing.
Right.
And even if only one person is helped, that's one person that you've made a difference for. But it sounds like you're reaching way more than one person. So that's. I think that's amazing. I
And
want
then
to ask. Oh, I'm
even
sorry.
with
Go
your
ahead.
even with your show, it's I've had I don't know if I told you I had 4 back surgeries, and
Mhm.
you have stuff, things come up in life, but we can't just cancel or miss these amazing opportunities of talking because today could change that one person's life forever. And I
Yeah.
recommend and hope everyone, like I will do, is share this over and over because even though we're having it today on September or October 1st, 2024, this still applies October 1st, 2028 if we don't have a cure. So we need to keep sharing this. The only way I think we'll find a cure is through all of your viewers and mine and all of us as a family really advocating together.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. What advice would you like to give to families and caregivers who are supporting loved ones with the disease?
I always have this little message I conclude with, but if I can say, we love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Amanda, your amazing host, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. And I always kind of joke and say I'm just getting started because, like we said, some of the tough days where I want to give up and I don't have any really reason to keep doing this because I already lost my mother and best friend. I kind of throw it to the side like a Jay-Z song I brought, and I say you got to get up and keep going, and that's what we do it for. Every time I see somebody out there fighting, every time I see a family member who's out there raising awareness, I want to be right by their side fighting until we find a cure. And I hope in a year or 2 months we could say no more. I'll still have the website. I won't have to do any more of this, but I'll still always, never forget what my mother meant to me and what this disease unfortunately did. But, one last thing is the cover of the book was at my wedding, and it was the mother and son dance. And that's the one moment that Parkinson's didn't exist. It can never take from me, and it'll live on forever. And that's why I chose it. My mother was dressed up beautiful as always. She was smiling. We were laughing. It was like time froze and nothing else mattered. But then we have, our anniversary every December 18th, and it's, we watch the movie. Thankfully, we have some of us still have a DVD player, thankfully. But as long as I have that, I never will forget. I just wish, one thing. My daughter yesterday was her birthday. She turned 12, and my mother during the toughest times always said, "Am I going to be here for Brooke?" It's her granddaughter's birthday and her wedding, and those are the toughest times. The holidays and the days like when my children grow, because they wish that she was here. I have 3 children, and my youngest was only 1 or 2, so he doesn't even really remember her. But as long as we keep doing what we're doing now, she'll never be forgotten, and I'm grateful for that from you and your audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can you talk just briefly? You have a wife, you have children, you have a family. What is it like for you day to day balancing this balancing act that I feel like you're dealing with, right? You're getting books published, you are raising awareness, you have your podcast, you have to bring in income so you can feed these people, right? But you're doing it also while keeping the memory of your mom alive and advocating for those who can't advocate for themselves. What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very blatant, honest. I even have a blog we put out today. It's called Tackling Tough Topics, where I'm pretty blatantly, I'll touch on anything from medical marijuana to death with dignity. A lot of these topics, even my mother's passing, people don't want to talk about. And there's another book I'm working on, which you might be like, and hopefully you love it, but it's not for 2 years. It's done. I'm just editing it. But it's going to talk more about people like me who lost a loved one due to Parkinson's, and a lot of people in the big organizations. I love them, but there's no place for me because they really do focus on people diagnosed and the family who are here. But it feels like a door closes to people like me, and we're kind of said, good luck and sorry. So there's days where it's hard. I've had one 99.9% has been heaven and beautiful, but there have been a few people who haven't been very supportive, which is odd. Because again, I don't ask for anything. This is not Shark Tank. I'm not going to say, but wait, there's more. I don't want anything. Like I always joke and say, please don't send $1 because then I got to mail it back. Now I'm paying you to stop. We have links for donations on my site or Together for Sharon, and they go. They're beautiful links from organizations like the American Parkinson's Disease Association. So if you donate, someone donated $53 the other day. It goes in my mother's memory, but it went to Michael J. Fox Foundation, which I love. But then I don't really have to deal with all that. I don't want to get
Absolutely.
involved. So, but there are days where I do feel like I'm kind of worn out, like you said, drained, or I don't even see my own family. If you met my mother, she would have laughed and said, "George, don't waste your time with all this. Go spend time with your family." But she didn't raise me to kind of just sit back and move on. I'm going to keep fighting till it's my last day. And sadly, I have it here. This is the Parkinson's. It's called the tulip, and it says PD. It's just a famous worldwide tulip. I decided the other day that we're going to inscribe it on my tombstone, which is kind of sad, but I feel like it's in my blood. It's part of me, and it's never going to go away because it took my mother and my best friend. So no
Mm.
matter what, it's going to have to stay with me. I even thought about tattoos, but I don't want to. I don't want to get painful, and then the kids will start getting tattoos. But I do. I love everybody out there with tattoos. No.
George, I just think that you're a big inspiration, and I appreciate you for having this talk with me because, like you said, it's not being talked about enough. The conversations are hard, and you live this every day. You know, I lost my mother 6 years ago, just on Friday, to
Sorry.
cancer, and so watching that, from when she was diagnosed stage 4, right? In 2013 to her demise in 2018. And the appointments, the all the things she went through. I know what that was like for me, right? But there's much more awareness out there about cancer and the different types of cancer, where there's not as much awareness out there as far as Parkinson's. And I myself, I don't have like with you, like the foundation or whatever, what have you. But I live with it, for my own reasons. But you physically and very tangibly live with it every single day, and I think that shows her legacy. Your mother's legacy is living through you in a very tangible, real way. And I think that she would most certainly appreciate every minute that you put into this for her and for those around you who are suffering through this, whether they have the disease or they love someone with the disease. So I want to thank you personally for that, because again, it's not being talked about enough, and I know it's got to be tough for you to talk through it day after day after day, but you keep doing it because you know there's a higher reason for it, and I think that's just awesome. I really do.
Thanks. And we send our love to you and your family, and sorry for your loss. And we actually just started covering other issues and areas. So, cancer, if you ever want to share your journey, I can also email you after the show. But anyone who wants to share their journey, I don't want anyone to be forgotten, including your mother, due to these illnesses. So, I
Yeah.
feel together we can really continue their legacy and ensure their memory is never forgotten. And actually, there is a in the books that I just released, there is I'm covering other journeys too. One of my close friends, she actually lost her husband, ironically, due to Alzheimer's the same exact day my mother passed due to Parkinson. So
Oh, wow.
we became like family. So I don't, I started covering ALS, dementia, Alzheimer's, uh, many other things. I just don't have the time. I wish we had a cure for them all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, how can our audience stay updated with any events, your podcast? Can you share your website, anything that you have going on coming up?
Yeah, if you go to Together for Sharon, it's all spelled out FORSHARON.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter, which just went out today. It's just me, so it's not like you're going to get bombarded. It's just one person, but it takes a whole community to fight this. And I just ask everyone to share. Feel free to purchase the book. It's not just for Parkinson's; it's for any caregiver, for any battle they're going through with their family, and also a memory of so many unfortunately we've lost due to Parkinson's, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of things coming. Just not enough time in the day, and I'm just grateful for your time again, and I hope we could share this too around the world.
Thank you. So that's togetherforsharon.com, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Togetherforsharon.com. You heard it first, guys, here on Life Uncensored. One last question for you before we leave, George. I would like you to tell our audience what one of two things, either your greatest joy or your favorite quote and why it's your favorite quote.
My greatest joy is seeing people smiling, like my family happy, and kind of, I remember again the better times with my mother and not Parkinson's. So that's something I recommend everyone take some time for yourself, even though I'm a hypocrite and I don't do it because I don't want to, I always think in my mind, if I take a minute, that might be someone else that lost an opportunity to meet and know they're not alone. But I think that the most important thing is family, spending time with them, forget any of the nonsense arguments or differences. Don't talk about politics because it really doesn't matter when it's life's involved and your family. You don't want to ever regret anything. That's the good thing is I don't regret anything. I don't think we could have done anything different except for have found a cure. So that's really my biggest thing is, especially now holidays are coming. It's not easy. It's actually the name of one of my future books, but I won't reveal it yet. So a lot
Okay.
of things coming. Working on a children's book also for kids to understand because my three children don't understand Parkinson's still and why their grandmother's no longer here. So it's a lot to come. I wish I didn't have to do it, but got to do some things sometimes, not just for other people, but to change the world for the better. And with individuals like you and your audience on my side, I know that we'll get it done. So thank you again.
Your work is not in vain. Not at all. Not at all. I am going to ask you to sit tight with me for just a minute while I close out the show. Can you do that?
Of course. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Love you.
Thanks so much, George. Sit tight just a moment. Everyone, that was Dr. George Ackerman. He is amazing, in my opinion. He's just simply amazing. He's working tirelessly to make sure that others don't suffer the same fate that his mother did, and that families are supported, and that those with the disease are supported. So make sure you check out his website, togetherforsharon.com. Subscribe to his newsletter. Stay updated on events that are going on locally in your area and around. And make sure that you are showing your support in any way you can. Every little bit helps. Um, just a few housekeeping notes for you all. Um, I'm going to talk about two things. Number one, recently I've added to our website the opportunity for those who would like to advertise on our show. You can go to our website, that's life-uncensored.com. Click the link for setting up a prelim call to talk about advertising your business on our show. Also, if you'd like to be a guest on our show or have an idea for an episode, again, go to our website, life-uncensored.com, fill out the little form, and you'll be hearing from us. In the meantime, like, follow, share. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. All right. I'm going to leave you all with our quote of the day, and that is, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And that's from Mr. Mahatma Gandhi. And I think this reflects Dr. Ackerman's journey from caregiver to advocate and serving others in the Parkinson's community. So thank you all. Until next time, uh, stay hydrated, stay safe, and do something kind for someone. You never know. You might change the world by doing so. Thanks, everyone. See ya.